Some people ask, when should you stop a root cause analysis? When do you get to the root? When do you get to a final thing? When do you have enough information? That's going to vary a little bit. I've heard some explanations, some answers to that are not entirely satisfactory. Some are good, of course, but like everything else. It's going to depend on context. How much time do you have? How much manpower? How much money? How many people are after the problem? How big is the company? Things like that, I think, should come into play to have a real good answer as to when. There's not some particular thing that everyone needs to do or can do. Sometimes, if you're in a hurry, getting some cause beyond the superficial is enough for right there. Do some 5 whys questioning, try to get some answer real quickly and go with that. Sometimes that's all you have time for, that's enough, it's a start. Then if you have more time, more people working on the problem, more money and all that, then someone could do something that's a little more complete and comprehensive. Do some 5 whys thing at least, which doesn't have to be specifically 5, it's a name, just like the 100 Years' War wasn't 100 years. A 5 whys questioning doesn't have to be exactly 5. Some people will give it a hard time about that, but I think that's kind of silly. It could be, it's just a name. Like I say, like the 100 Years' War was not exactly 100 years. Or other situations like that. A baker's dozen isn't exactly 12, it's 13, or maybe 14 or 15 if someone wants to. But work on maybe getting beyond the immediate moment. Ask why 3 times, 5 times, 7, 13, depending on what you can do in the situation, and then do more. But, you can do 5 all the time if you've got some categories or classifications. If someone's randomly doing 5 without practice, just why, getting an answer without direction, practice, system, then yeah, it's not necessarily going to be any good, just like anything else. Nothing that is not done right is any good, Everything, no matter what it is, has to be done right to be any good, not just the 5 whys. But if you do something like this, if you have some actual categories or things you got to go through for the 5, then it can be okay. So, for example, if you do 5 whys. You can make it 5 if you got some classification system. So you're looking at what level you're at. If you think of having 5 levels all the time, you want to kind of think through, then 5 is fine. If you think, and then you develop these more, but if you got, number 1, the individual or the person, why did that happen? You could think on that level, start there, get something, then go down to situation, what's in the immediate vicinity, kind of there and now, that's causing this. What's causing it on an individual person level, or just identify what is it, what's the person, what's the individual, what do they do, okay, little y there. What about the situation? What's going on in the situation that makes something happen? What about the broader system involved? System in a laboratory, system in a company. You got typical example, someone working on an assembly line. Why did this thing go wrong? Oh, because this person messed up. There's a why. Okay, why did they mess up? What's going on in the situation in that particular room and assembly line? The system. What's going on in that system? What is that assembly line tied to? Not just in terms of someone working on it, but maintenance, clean up, repair, workers, the whatever you want to call that provides stuff there. Then you got the company. You got a system within a company, a bunch of systems. Then you got culture or the thought of the company. This will be more fundamental, you know. You're talking about these particular things, and when you get to human thought, human interaction with the environment, then you're getting into something more fundamental. And with these, you're starting to get to the boundary of the company with outside forces that you can't control. Or you can see what it is economically that the company is connected to, and maybe there's something there that you got these economic relationships, you can see something there and bringing in training or policies into the company. And with thought, you know, there's a boundary there. You're getting to the boundary between the company and culture, education, philosophy. So that stuff is out of your control, at least for most of us. You don't control the educational system. You don't control the philosophy of a culture. It doesn't control the way people are taught to think in schools or the way the culture is. But you can see what about the educational system or the prevalent philosophy has influenced the company, and then correct that. You can't correct it out here, but if you got the time, you got the money, you got the resources and all that, then yeah, you can bring in better educational methods of thought into the system and the company and improve the situation. But if you got a practice like this, where this is what the things you have to do when you're answering the 5 whys, hey, then 5 is fine, you know? But you can still drill down into these more, develop this more, do some whys in causal analysis within that. But you got these kind of levels of causality. And if you do 5 whys like that, and you know, well then 5 is fine, you know? Because then you're getting to the boundary where you don't control anything. And that's a general answer too. If you're in a hurry and you don't have much training with it, if you do some 5 whys, you don't know all this, big deal. You think about the situation, why did this person make a mistake? Because they weren't trained. Why weren't they trained? Because of the company being busy in hiring practices or whatever. And you can get a thing like that. Or why was there this problem? You know, one of the classic things, there's some part not clean, some filter, and so you got metal shavings in some part, so it breaks down. You could do some like quick 5 whys like that sometimes. Look at a situation, figure it out really quickly. But instead of just blaming a person, look at the situation. Do a 5 whys, that's fine, sometimes. Then do more if you can. But once you get to the boundary of company, thought processes in the company is instituted by policies and how people work and all that, once you get to that, then you know you got to your root cause because you're going out where you cannot control. But there's a quick answer. When you're doing a root cause analysis, it's a quick answer to that question. When you're doing a root cause analysis, when should you stop? It depends on, as I say, how much time you got, how many people work in the company, how much money and manpower can you throw at the situation. That's one thing. And then do something quickly if you can, better than nothing. But if you got time, go down to the boundary of company and economics, thought processes and culture, philosophy, and you're done. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.